Also, dreams are really freaking cool too. Um, I never really understood dreams. I just figured that it's just random thoughts you have throughout the day, just manifesting into some storyline. So I never really thought too much about dreams, but I heard an interesting perspective from not he's not a scientist, but some interesting perspective about um what dreams really are. And the way he described it really showed that I think dreams have more inherent meaning than we ascribe to them. Because I've always thought of dreams as this random storyline, like meaningless. But when I thought about dreams, the perspective that he showed, it kind of showed me that I think there is more deeper meaning in dreams. That if you look at our dreams and we try to understand like the analogy behind it, it's kind of telling us something about our life, which I think is cool. Um, the way he described it was that we have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. The conscious mind is the one that's speaking to me and you right now, that's interacting with each other, that's solving problems, that's thinking through things like thinking, what should I do today, planning the future, thinking about the past. Like that's all your conscious mind. Your subconscious mind is happening in the background and it's processing information around you with you consciously being aware of it, right? So it has all your memory base in there. It has a lot of other stimulus in this room that we're not like conscious about. Like there's so much stimulus in this room that we can't physically like, be conscious about all of it at the same time. Like things like the color of the door. I'm thinking about it right now, but when I wasn't thinking about it, it was there. I can see it with my eyes, but it's more in the subconscious of my mind. And that's why when a lot of people have you heard the concept of like let your subconscious mind deal with the problem and not think about it? Um, I've heard this before. I think Cal Newport was talking about it in his book. I think that's where it came from. But sometimes if you're trying to deal with some big life problem or some like maybe school problem that you just can't figure out, and you just take a break away from it, you might not be consciously thinking about it, but your subconscious mind is thinking about it, which is why when you come back to the problem, you might see it in a new light because your subconscious mind kind of worked through it and did it for you, which I think is pretty cool. But we know all this about the subconscious mind, but in reality, we don't really know much about how our subconscious mind functions. Like, what does it look like? What does it think like? But there are certain gateways that we can use that causes our conscious mind to turn off and cause us to look back into our subconscious mind, right? Like psychedelics, I think are a great example. I I don't know much about the psychedelic community and stuff about what it does to you, but what makes sense to me is that when you take a psychedelic, it kind of allows you to see your subconscious mind. Have you heard about psychedelics before?
Yeah. Um, yeah, to talk about what you just said, I think I've definitely noticed that in my own life. When I was writing my senior thesis, like I'd be stuck on wording or an idea, and then I'd go do whatever else I need to do during my day and come back to it, and I could write again. And I would write in like short bursts where like, maybe my subconscious mind was doing the work for me while I was doing something else. So I've noticed that. And um yeah, so about dreams, I dream a lot. Like I think I dream almost every day. And like I always wake up and I remember it. And if I keep on thinking about it, like I could remember it. But I don't know. Like I forgot what I dreamed about this morning, but I did have a dream. Uh, I think also compared to other people, I think like I have a lot more dreams and like a lot more intense dreams. Like I've had like lucid dreams before. There's one summer where I had a lot of like sleep paralysis. And yeah, so I don't know. I think it's really interesting how everybody's a bit different in their subconscious.
Yeah, so kind of like how psychedelics help you access your subconscious state. I think the best analogy is that when you're sleeping, your conscious mind turns off so you can see your subconscious mind, right? So it's kind of like you're dreaming all the time in the background. Like that's how your subconscious mind is thinking. We just don't see it. So maybe when our conscious mind turns off, we're able to see the subconscious mind, which I think is like a cool concept. Maybe if it's not even literally factually true, it gives us a good perspective on like what is our dream. It's just how our subconscious mind looks at the world. And there have been people in the past who have kept a dream journal. My dad is a friend who's done it, but also seen that, you know, Rick Rubin, right? Rick Rubin is like a music producer who's worked with like Eminem and a lot of big names, but um, he also keeps a dream journal. And what he's noticed is that in the moment, like if you look at whatever you dreamed about last night, if you can remember it, it probably doesn't have much inherent meaning. But what he noticed was that when he looked back at his dreams, like 4 or 5 months later, and in the context of that period of his life, it's like it made so much sense what his dream was trying to tell him, right? Like it's like your subconscious mind looks at the world through analogies. And it basically has some inherent meaning inside of it. We just can't really understand it because when we're so encompassed in our current life, we don't really see the meaning of this stage of our life. But if you look back at previous times in your life, you can make these post hoc stories about like, oh yeah, that's my lesson from this period of my life. That's what I was doing in this period. But you can't really see that until you're in a third person perspective and can understand the meaning of that dream. But another interesting thing is that your dream, it it tries to send you that message through the method that you learn best. For example, me, I see the world through a lot of like I think a lot of like philosophy and stuff, and I think my way through a lot of problems, and I learn best like through analogies and looking through things like in different pictures. And because of that, my dreams, there's often like analogies, like statements or like philosophical statements that connect back to some other meaning in my life, which I can try to think of an example of something I had recently. But it's often like through an analogy or but for example, my mom, she said that she learns best through like actually doing and movement and doing it herself. And when I asked her about what are your dreams like, she's like, she moves a lot in her dreams. Like her dreams have a lot of movement in them. And I even asked her about one of the dreams she had recently. So we were in Michigan and the plan was that we had one open day, so we were like thinking about what to do before the campus day, which is on Monday. And one thing we want to do is like check out some of the houses in the area because ideally, most people in Michigan they move out their second year and live on their own. So we were gonna look at some houses, and then we were also going to um do like a small trail nearby because like we had some time in the morning. Like it's kind of like a hike, but a kind of small one. Um but yeah, my mom, she historically has kind of been afraid of safety on hikes. And she always feels more comfortable when there's a lot of people there. And then when we know about like there's no animals here, because she's sometimes worried that there'll be animals on the trail, right? Um, so the dream that she had, and by the way, she also like really enjoys like looking at houses and stuff. Like she enjoys that whole she finds it fun. But the dream she had that night, which by the way, she thought there was no meaning behind it. She thought it was just like useless stuff, right? So she was in some house, some big like man, like it was not a mansion, but it was a pretty big house. And it was like getting dark evening, and there's someone outside, and they have a big garden in their backyard, and there was a lawnmower who's cutting the grass or something. And for some reason, as it's getting darker at night, she has to go out of the garden and go on a long walk around the around the house to the front of the house. And as she's going along the walk, she starts to see like little animals, right? So she sees squirrels running by and bunnies, and then there's deer, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And she's going on and on and on. And then she eventually sees some like pretty big animals, like there's like big ostrich or rooster looking animal. And it first sees her and walks away, but then it starts walking towards her. And then she's trying to shoo it away. And she actually starts sleep talking at this point. And I'm sleeping in the same room as her, so I got really freaked out. She was like making some demonic like song type sound in the middle. It was pretty fucking scary. That's a separate story. That's why I asked her about the dream in the first place. But she's trying to shoo the animal away and get rid of it. And that's when I woke her up, like, why are you singing? But yeah, she told me the dream. She's like, "Oh, yeah, it's a dream." And I asked her, like, "Do you think there's meaning behind the dream?" And she's like, "She doesn't think so. I mean, it's just a random like I'm just walking my garden." And I thought about it. First of all, I saw there's a lot of movement, which correlates with how she learns. But also, well, she was thinking a lot about houses during the day, and she seemed to be in a house, so that's probably something she was thinking about, which is probably why the dream was placed in the context of that. And then she is also really afraid. She might have been thinking about the hike, and maybe she was a little worried about it, but maybe she wasn't really consciously thinking about that. Maybe she was kind of worried about it in the background of her mind. And this is kind of her subconscious way of being worried about a hike. It's a long walk around the house with animals. And I told her that, aren't you scared of animals on trails? And she's like, oh yeah, it makes kind of sense. It was kind of like an analogy that I was trying to tell her that, which I thought was pretty fucking cool. Another example, I was it was the day before we were leaving from Michigan. We were leaving at 10. I always pack like last minute, so I'm like, I'll just pack tomorrow morning. If you enjoyed that clip, then click here to see the full, unedited length podcast. Make sure you click here to see the full podcast, and don't forget to like and subscribe.